All right, we are here in the future. And Jim, that was Modern Wrestling and WWE Raw. Why don't we do some history stuff? We're going to get to some questions too. I was going through the files the other day. This is the introduction for From the Files. Because of you, I went to see what I had on Jim Clinstock.
Because we discussed the alleged murder of, and definitely the death of, Jim Clinstock back in 1944 in Wilmington, North Carolina, the other day on one of the programs.
And what I seemingly have are a bunch of 8x10s, like a stack of them, of him, doing holds on other people, his original press photos, and various other photos. And near that file, what caught my eye was Chain Gang. So I said, let me go look in this file. And I don't care if you're talking Hans Schmidt, Baron von Raschke, anyone you could think, any German, none of them had as much Nazi shit on as Don Fargo in the 70s. It's stunning. It's almost comical, the amount it's on. And then, of course, the big patch that says Fat Jesus.
No, Fat Christ.
Fat Christ, that's what it was.
Fat Christ. I have some of those photos as well. And before anybody thinks that Don Fargo was a Nazi, Don Fargo just, besides the fact that that was the part of his life where he was living with, I think that was the part of his life. He was living with some of these biker gangs and got all of their gear, and that's what they wore. He was committed to a gimmick, whatever the gimmick was. So he was going to wear the most offensive shit possible, but he wasn't really a Nazi.
Well, there are lots of photos of him and his partner in the Chain Gang, who, of course, the real-life gang that they were intimidating ended up chasing away, minus a leg, or whatever happened. Even photos.
Oh, no, come on, don't leave it like that. I know a lot of people know the story, but his original partner, Frank Dillinger, when they were wearing all these biker gang colors and shit, and the real biker gang, after a show in Wisconsin, when they were working in Chicago, invited them to a party where they then shot Frank in the leg several times, and Don apparently escaped death by diving out the window and swimming away or whatever. But that was the end of Frank's wrestling career, and they had to tone down the biker shit.
And I have a lot of photos of Frank before the Chain Gang. So some interesting stuff there, but then it got me thinking about the Hells Angels. Because the Chris Colt file is kind of bare. There's not much there, which was surprising. And I found it. It's in the Dupree brothers file.
Aha!
And that's what I have here. The Dupree brothers, Ron Dupree, of course, was, I guess, the one who started wrestling first as Golden Boy Dupree for Tony Santos.
Yeah.
And then Chris Colt came a few years later, and then they became a tag team. And there is footage in color from Detroit that people could see of them against, I think, J.J. Dillon and Arnie Skoland.
Yes, the old Big Time Wrestling studio show that is out there on YouTube. And Ron Dupree did start wrestling first. He was a little bit older. And then, as you will recall, Chris Colt, who was Chuck Harris from the Midwest, was pen pals with Tom Burke back then in the early 60s and made the move to come to New England, to Boston. What was it, 64-ish, 5-ish or whatever, to train with Tony Santos. Les Thatcher was, I think, had just started wrestling a couple of years beforehand, trained with Santos. And that's where Chris Colt met Ron Dupree, and he became his brother. And they also were a couple.
And this folder, Jim, seems to have every single press photo for sure that they ever took. Some of these are ridiculous. But through the years, the Dupree brothers, the Chain Gang. Here's a stunning one of Chris Colt with valet Bill Colt. That's Bill Anderson.
Yeah. That was from 1975. But some of the stuff there, and also the Duprees as the Hells Angels, they were one of the last teams that Jack Pfeffer booked. he got them booked into East Tennessee and the Kingsport territory in like the late 60s. And there are letters in the Pfeffer file from them giving him their bookings. Here's where we are this week, and et cetera, et cetera. This was probably either right at the time or right after that Pfeffer split up with Fargo's.
I have a photo here. Has on the back of it September 14th, 1959, Santos Wrestling Enterprises, Inc., Massachusetts Avenue, Boston 15, Massachusetts, and it looks like could be Pfeffer's handwriting. Golden Boy Dupree, Hollywood, California. I have some negatives here of photos of them, and I'm trying to see any actual articles or anything. There's a ton of photos. I didn't think there was anything with Chris Colt, and now I seemingly have all stuff from all different points in his career.
Well, and they did the Hells Angels too without as violent a result. And actually, I think Fargo and his partner weren't really calling themselves the Hells Angels. They were calling themselves the Chain Gang. They were just wearing all of the patches and the colors and some of the symbols and shit that got that one gang upset. But the Duprees, their Hells Angels was more like the Adrian Street and Bobby Barnes Hells Angels in England, where the Duprees, like Adrian and Bobby Barnes, wore black leather with the studs and the wristbands and the collars, and more like a Judas Priest 80s, early 80s Road Warrior type of Hells Angels, where it was more about the insinuation of actual hell. Adrian and Bobby even had robes made one time where they were all in white, but when they opened the robes, their lining was red. So like angels, Hell's Angels. But they weren't technically riding motorcycles to the fucking ring like Fargo and when he was the Dillingers.
Here's an 8x10. Dupree Brothers, Canadian Hells Angels, tag team champions with manager Sam Bass. This can't be the same Sam Bass from Memphis.
It's the same Sam Bass. That was, I think, one of his, if it wasn't his first job in managing, it was his first major one.
Wow.
Sam Bass, who would be Jerry Lawler's manager in the early 70s in Memphis, his real name was Fred White. But as Sam Bass, he managed the Duprees in East Tennessee, and I'm not sure how many other places. I think from like 1968-ish, 69-ish, something like that. And then was in Alabama when Lawler was sent to the Montgomery, Alabama territory to learn. That's where he met Jim White and Sam Bass. And they became a team, and that was Lawler's first push when they all three came to Memphis. And then Bass stayed with Lawler until he was killed in that car wreck in July of 1976.
I wouldn't even think it's the same guy. He looks so clean cut here. He has a cane. He has a suit on with the Hells Angels, or the Canadian Hells Angels, around him. There's no date on this. It's a letter written on the stationery of the Frontier Motor Hotel. Vacation in Phoenix, the Valley of the Sun. Highway 60, 70, 80, and 89. They have AAA affiliation, a heated swimming pool, cooler and refrigeration, TV and phones in every room, and kitchenettes.
I was about to say, I asked you if it plugged TV in every room.
Dear Lou, just a few lines to say hi. Also to say, I'm doing very well. I'm out here in Phoenix. I got a tag team together in about 5 months now, the Dupree Brothers. Lou, you can help me and my team very much if you can rate my team if possible. Again, so it's in script. It's hard to
well,
see.
and is this letter, is Lou spelled L-E-W?
That is correct.
That would be Lou Eskin, who was the editor of, oh God, what was the magazine that would have existed at that time right before Wrestling Monthly? Was it Wrestling Review?
It would have been possibly Wrestling Review at that time.
I think it was late 60s.
Again, if you could rate my team if possible, saw you rate the Assassins, but they are no longer a team. One had to quit because of gallbladder trouble.
The gall of him.
So if possible, you would be doing me a great deal, it looks like that says. So write me at this motel, okay? We'll send you all the programs we are going for.
Boy, the opportunistic part of him. The one guy gets gallbladder trouble, and fuck him. He's got a bad gallbladder. Rate us in his spot.
The world's tag team champions. We are undefeated and are doing great. So please write me soon. Your friend always, Ronnie Dupree, care of the Frontier Motel, 2823 East Van Buren, Phoenix, Arizona. Hotel stationery. Something you see a lot of when you look through old wrestling correspondence. What do you have to say about that?
Because that's where everybody was, and you don't have that anymore. I was in a hotel this summer, and there wasn't even a goddamn advertisement. They would just turn on the television. I want the paper. That's where all the guys were, and they would load up on the free stationery and envelopes.
Again, a ton of photos in here. Photos I've never seen before of these guys. This is pretty incredible stuff, actually. Here's Golden Boy Dupree and Hank Williams Jr. Son of the late and great country and western singer Hank Williams Sr. of the Grand Ole Opry, Nashville, Tennessee, in the dressing room of the Boston Arena, where he worked for Tony Santos.
He went from hanging around with Hank Williams Jr. to hanging around with Janis Joplin.
I have an article here. This is from a newspaper. It's the actual newspaper here. Boston Record American, Thursday, March 22nd, 1962. The story, Disabled Dad Tells of Little Mother, Girl's Leukemia Death Unlocks Secret. And there are two photos here, one of Christine Gately of Roxbury. She whispered her tragic secret to the judge. And wrestler Golden Boy Dupree in Dying Girl's favorite photo. And it's a press photo that you may have seen before of him with his hand on his chin. The death in City Hospital of Joanne Gately, 10, Roxbury, leukemia victim, unlocked the secret of her sister, Christine, the 12-year-old, quote, little mother. Frank Gately, disabled war veteran and maintenance group leader at South Station Postal Annex, told the story as arrangements were being completed for the funeral of Joanne Thursday afternoon. Joanne died Tuesday. Here's a quote from Gately. I want to tell the whole story just to say thanks to the many people whose kindness has carried me and my family through a terrific time. I was going to say terrible. It says terrific. And then it says, had Dad's letters. He and his daughter, Christine, came into the news last November when the girl wandered through corridors of municipal court seeking someone whom she could deliver her father's letter. He had been summoned for failing to return a batch of traffic tags. The reason he couldn't get in was that he was in Veterans Hospital undergoing an operation. His wife, Anna, was in the hospital suffering from a nervous breakdown.
Jesus Christ.
His daughter, Patricia, 14, was in a boarding school.
Oof.
Joanne was then in City Hospital, and he said he had been informed she was suffering from leukemia. At home, Christine played mother to her brother Frank, 9. The letter she carried in her hand when she went to the court explained it all to Judge Elijah Adlow. Attorney Paul Smith, who defended the Brinks Bandits, saw her wandering and led her to the judge and became her advocate. The parking tickets were filed. On her last visit home, Christine and her father were especially kind to Joanne. She had seen wrestlers on television. She wanted to see them. Her father took her to the arena, and there she saw and fell in love with Golden Boy Dupree. After the
Boy,
matches,
talk about a hopeless dream.
after the matches, she, God damn you. I can't freaking read this now. After the matches, she met him. While she was in the hospital, he went to visit her, touched by her smiling acceptance of her illness and her fate. He autographed and gave her his picture. Her father said she died with the picture in her hands.
Oh,
Joanne's body is at the Murray Funeral Home and has information here. Golden Boy Dupree, 1962 Boston. This young girl's favorite wrestler.
shows you the state of the wrestling business in Boston in 1962, though.
And then I have also here another newspaper article. This one, December 14th, 1966, Arizona Republic. This must have been also sent in by Ron Dupree. In giant black marker right up in the Phoenix paper. And there's an article here by Dave Hicks, Matt Meanies, Rouse Rabble. Gang ambush attacks, rats and hoodlums, special privileges. Why? That's enough to influence one to practice abstemia at Madison Square Garden's weekly wrestling matches. I've been supremely successful at it. But periodically, an incensed fan brings to light innumerable atrocities committed on Friday evenings at the Garden.
And by the way, this would be the one in Phoenix, Arizona,
That's
not
right.
the one in New York City.
And the public deserves enlightenment. Recently, it was Don Arnold who was incurring the wrath of all about him. I investigated. I didn't find much atrocious about Don Arnold. Funny, but not atrocious. Now, Canada is exporting two commodities that threaten, insist my correspondents, to destroy all U.S.-Canadian relations. As a Kansan, I'm familiar with the dreaded Dalton brothers of the 1890s. But the dreaded Dupree brothers of the 1960s must be something else.
Huh.
Here's a quote. If any of you news hounds, writes my correspondent, want to see an unusual Roman holiday style of barbaric wrestling, now is your time to attend the matches at Madison Square Garden. The usual style of wrestling was introduced to Phoenix wrestling fans about 2 months ago at the Sportatorium by the Dupree brothers from Canada. They are granted the special privilege from the Arizona State Athletic Commission for both brothers to be in the ring or straddle the ropes when only one wrestler is due or should be away from the ring and out of sight when his brother is in the ring.
What kind of goddamn deal are they doing here?
I thought it was meant for tag matches. It almost sounds like if one of them has a singles match, the other ones will have to just hang out in the ring. Just hang out in the ropes. Let me reread that line. They are granted the special privilege from the Arizona State Athletic Commission for both brothers to be in the ring or straddle the ropes when only one wrestler is due or should be away from the ring and out of sight when his brother is in the ring. But on the first showing of these...
Meanwhile, their manager has to be in a special closet backstage next to the fucking fryer at the concession stand.
But on the first showing of these Canadian wrestlers, rats and hoodlums, both Canadian brothers have already been in the ring at the same time, on the ring apron, hanging, lounging on the top rope, etc., when only one of the rats was doing the ring. Among other atrocities, I gather, is the fact that the Dupree brothers, drat them, are allowed to, here's another quote, wear and use stomping boots, wear a hollow belt buckle to carry metal weapon. And it really does bring the blood and knock an opponent out. The informant declares, both Canadian rats are allowed to be in the ring and attack one opponent. Yes, that is hard to believe. It does destroy one's faith in fair play, but it's true. And a final invitation. So you be at ringside about 8:15 or before. Try to get a seat where you could easily watch both sides of the ring and also sit in front of several talkative men, etc., who may have inside dope about the matches. Gads! I am stirred by such promise.
Gads!
But I still prefer Phoenix Star Theater. So there's some early promotion for them in Phoenix, Arizona.
Holy Christ.
And that's a little bit from the files here. Oh, there's an article here. We'll end with this. Boy, this one was typed on regular paper, but it's all marked up like they cut things out of the article. New England wrestling score.
Is it a ransom note?
Here we are for some more human interest stories on Boston's Mat Men. Joe Red Sasso, a local boy of Revere, Massachusetts, is packing them in wherever he appears. He stands 5'10", weighs 250 pounds, and is billed as the new Gus Sonnenberg of the mat. Now there's a whole bunch crossed out. They just left the word dangerous flying tackle. They crossed out everything around that, which looks like puts his opponents away in record time.
I've never seen a redacted press release before.
No, this is an article, it looks like, that someone sent in for the magazine, I would guess. But along with Red, other favorites are Eddie Ortiz, the young Puerto Rican sensation, who is known for his flying dropkicks and aerobatic movements. Eddie hails from San Sebastian, Puerto Rico, and is the original Mr. Puerto Rico. The Perfume Hollywood Honey, Golden Boy Dupree, is another young and versatile wrestler who appeals more to the feminine sex than to the men in the audience. There's a bunch crossed out here. He throws flowers to the ladies in the audience before he wrestles. Killer Douglas...
And then he gives them tips on interior decorating.
Killer Douglas still holds the East Coast Championship. Giving the Killer a rough time is the Oklahoma Cyclone Jesse James, who was the former East Coast champ. James wants another crack at Douglas. Also the tough and rough Bull Montana. The Boston Gardens resumes wrestling, featuring many of the top TV stars. And then it's just all marked up and crossed out after that. But there we go, from the files, the Dupree brothers, the Hells Angels. Any final thoughts?
Yes, Boston was ready and ripe for the picking in the mid-'60s to be assimilated into the WWF family, and that kind of shows it.
And Ron Dupree, other than, you talk about there not being much Chris Colt footage, other than the footage of them in Detroit, is there any Ron Dupree footage?
That would even be harder because he was older. He had the ill health and then died of a heart attack when he was announcing a wrestling event out in the Pacific Northwest. And that's when Colt kind of went farther on the road as a single and went farther out as a loose cannon personality when he didn't have Dupree to stabilize him.
Yeah, you can see there's a difference between him and Dupree in these photos, the beginning and the middle, just how they looked at different times, and then him and Count Drummer.
Yeah.
Standing there.
The Time Machine. Count Drummer was from the 1800s and Chris Colt was from the 2000s when it was 1977.
Well, of course, Jim, a lot of wrestlers sent a lot of letters on hotel stationery. That's where they were. That's where they had free papers and pens. And they also had beds.
They had beds there. They weren't free. You had to pay for the beds. You got the pen and the paper free.
But imagine how many wrestlers would be feeling better today if all those crappy hotels and motels replaced their shitty beds with a great bed. A bed that we love in my house. A bed that you love in your house. A bed from Helix Sleep.
Well, you're wrong there, Brian. They shouldn't replace the beds. They should replace the mattresses. Now, you can sit a Helix Sleep mattress on a daggum bunch of, I don't know, fruit crates, and it'll still be a wonderful sleep because it's the mattress that makes the difference, not the platform, Brian. So we got to make that clear. Now, if you go to Helix Sleep and you try to find, I don't know, let's say a giant bed like Dick the Bruiser had that's 20 feet wide and 10 feet long, they don't have those because that's just crazy. But what they have is mattresses to fit anything that you can commercially come up with. And we mentioned they're also good to put out in the backyard in case you need to jump out of the third floor window in case of a fire. I'm going to die on that hill. I'm telling you, I would line the whole backyard with these things. But more to the point, you say you need a good night's sleep in one of these flea bag motels that you apparently think that the people are staying in along the highways and byways of the country. You're not going to get it there. They've got sacks of wheat and pillowcases stuffed with plastic wrappers from the local fucking fast food joints. That's what you're going to sleep on at one of these flea bag motels or one of these fly-by-night mattress places. You know, all they do is they get behind the dumpster behind McDonald's and they take all of those quarter-pounder boxes and mash them up and stuff the mattresses with them and then sell them to you on the open market. That's what a lot of these places are doing. It's been on the news. Have you seen this, Brian?
I have not seen this. I don't know why we're focusing on this when there's a great mattress, a great bed,
It's to show you what the alternative is. Do you want to sleep on a bunch of crunched up McDonald's burger boxes? Or do you want to sleep on fine quality natural ingredients, American made fabrics like parsley and sage and rosemary and thyme and whatever other fabrics they put in mattresses?
This is not Scarborough Fair, Jim.
Well, it might be Joe Scarborough. He sleeps on one of these. I haven't on. Mika told me.
You do not know that you can't assign the bed to celebrities that you don't know anything about.
I'm not supposed to admit to people that I talked to Mika because we got a thing going on Joe doesn't know about.
Will you stop? Can we get back to the...
And Mrs. Mika, Mrs. Mika.
Again, let's...
If you want to go to bed, ladies and gentlemen, well, let's see. Sika, now there you're talking. If you want to go to bed with Sika, ladies and gentlemen...
Let's get back to a mattress that we all love.
Yes, I could lay down with Sika on a Helix Sleep mattress or in a bed of, burning rubber. But right now, if you go to helixsleep.com, Sika might not be available, but a good night's sleep is. That's HELIX, helixsleep.com/JCE. And you just take the quiz on what kind of mattress you'd like from their array, their arsenal of mattresses. It's amazing plethora and cornucopia of mattresses and shapes and sizes and firmnesses and hardnesses. If you want to get it really hard every night, they got something for you. And if occasionally it can be soft, these things happen. They'll take care of you too. And you're going to save money because right now, using our code helixsleep.com/JCE, 27% off site-wide. That's what you're going to get. So if you order 5 or 6 mattresses, then you're going to get 27% off of everything. And then you've just saved so much money. You can buy Sika to put on this mattress. Because, she is older now, and I would imagine she's not at the demand she used to be. So I wouldn't think it'd take more than maybe $170, $180. If you've got any kind of, secondhand jewelry, she might accept that also. But you can get Sika on one of these helixsleep.com mattresses if you work hard enough and pay her going rate. Right, Brian?
No, not right, Brian. What you could say right, Brian, about is the great deal on Helix Sleep mattresses that we have for our listeners, not about any other perversions, but right,
well,
Brian.
Well, that's how you're gonna save enough money to afford Sika with 27% off all these mattresses.
I said people, because you were talking about Mika, they could Sika a great deal, and you went right down the porno road.
What you were talking about? It's the only Sika I know. Well, I guess the Samoan.
You know, the Samoan.
You don't want to sleep like the Samoans do. They sleep up in palm trees.
Again,
and that's not comfortable. Think of Sika the porn star rather than Sika the Samoan.
For all the listeners who want a great mattress that we love and approve of, Helix Sleep one last time, Jim, one last time here today. That promo
One
code.
last time. HelixSleep.com/JCE, 27% off site wide on these fine mattresses.
All right.